Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of What the Dementia by Bambu Care. I'm your host, Brianna Wilson. I am a certified dementia practitioner and the founder of Bambu Care. So if you guys weren't aware, September is actually World Alzheimer's Month, and today specifically is World Alzheimer's Day. So even though I said that we will be doing podcasts twice a month until we resume our normal schedule, I thought we'd do a special episode to just talk about dementia. So let's talk about dementia. So before we get into today's topic, I did want to let my podcast family know that I have made another freebie available on our website, letsbambu.com. And under resources, you'll find a short ebook outlining 10 quick tips that would be beneficial to know for your dementia care journey. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely check the podcast notes or visit letsbambu.com. So let's just start with some quick statistics. The number of people living with dementia around the world is over 50 million, and this number is actually expected to triple, reaching 152 million people by 2050. And this is why education on dementia is so important, guys. Dementia, unfortunately, as much as we wish that it would go away, as much as we wish there was a cure, it isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It knows no social, no economic, or geographical bounds, and the number of people who have it is just going to increase, okay? So what is dementia anyway? Dementia is actually a syndrome, meaning that it is a collection of symptoms that affect memory, thinking, behavior, emotion in such a way that it interferes with daily functioning in a significant way. And these symptoms are caused by various diseases or conditions. So, dementia by itself is not really a disease. It's just a collection of symptoms that is being caused by some type of disease or condition. And so, the symptoms that present are essentially caused by brain cell death, which a lot of people don't really know. Many people don't realize that dementia is basically brain failure due to brain cell death. And like I mentioned before, unfortunately, there is no cure as of yet for true progressive dementia. So let's run through what some of these symptoms could be. So symptoms of dementia can include memory loss, which is what most people are familiar with, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, difficulty communicating or finding words, difficulty reasoning or problem solving, difficulty handling complex tasks, difficulty with planning and organizing, difficulty with coordination and motor functions, difficulty with visual and spatial abilities, confusion and disorientation, changes in personality, onset of depression and or anxiety, inappropriate behavior, paranoia and delusions, and hallucinations. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick rundown. But most people aren't aware of just how much dementia can impact a person. It really can impact every facet of your life, every facet of your body and the way that it functions, which is what's so important to know. And unfortunately, these symptoms usually reveal themselves in a progressive fashion. So typically, the first person to become aware of the symptoms is the person experiencing them. Therefore, by the time family, friends, coworkers, things like that become aware that there may be something going on, the person may have been experiencing these difficulties for quite some time. Now, how does Alzheimer's disease come into play with dementia? Because I know most of you have heard or at least will hear the term Alzheimer's disease and dementia, which is honestly inaccurate and it can be confusing for people. It's more accurate to say Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. So Alzheimer's disease is the leading type or cause of dementia. Remember, I mentioned that dementia is a collection of symptoms being caused by some type of disease or condition. Well, in this case, Alzheimer's disease is the disease causing the symptoms related to dementia. Now, because it is the most common form of dementia, it's also the most researched and therefore also the most heard about. okay? As far as the prevalence of Alzheimer's goes, you'll hear that it accounts for numbers ranging between 50 to 80% of all cases. Now, I personally like to say about 2/3 because it's halfway in between those ranges, and then it's just kind of give or take from there. I don't really like to complicate things too much. Now, as of right now, the second leading cause of dementia is recognized as vascular dementia, which is essentially caused by changes in blood flow to the brain due to damaged blood vessels. Okay, so this type of dementia can be caused by something like a stroke or several mini strokes known as TIAs or transient ischemic attacks, which is much more complicated to say, heart attacks, high blood pressure, things like that. Okay. Now, other common types of dementia that you may hear about are Lewy body dementia and frontotemporal dementia. But what I want you guys to know and understand is that there can be over 100 causes of dementia, which is crazy. This is why it's so important that if you or your partner start showing symptoms of dementia, that you get checked out to see what may be causing the symptoms. Because you know what? There are dementia-like conditions that can actually be reversed if caught early enough, because essentially they present as dementia-like symptoms, but they're not dementia. So if the issue is rectified, then the symptoms will also resolve as well. So some examples of this are like infections or some immune disorders because your body is trying to fight off an infection, and so dementia-like symptoms may be a side effect of that process that your body is going through. Depression is another one, which can be a huge issue among older adults and seniors. Nutritional deficiencies, especially like dehydration or vitamin B deficiencies, vitamin E or copper deficiencies. Medication side effects can also be a huge issue, especially for seniors, because a lot of times they're on a lot of different kind of medications that might not be working in their favor, and they have a lot of side effects. That's the reality of it. Metabolic problems or endocrine abnormalities. So think of issues with like the thyroid or with blood sugar or sodium or calcium. When the levels are out of whack, people can develop dementia-like symptoms. Also, exposure to poisons, whether it's in the form of pesticides or heavy metals, drugs, alcohol, these things can cause dementia-like symptoms. And one last thing that I'll mention is like a brain tumor. So, a person with a brain tumor can present with dementia-like symptoms, but if caught early enough and if the brain tumor is able to be removed, then the dementia-like symptoms often fade with it, right? So, it's not true dementia. It's just something that's presenting like dementia because dementia is just a collection of symptoms, and a lot of things can present that way. So the point is, because there can be so many causes of dementia or dementia-like symptoms, the earlier you can get whatever may be going on checked out, the better. And it at least opens the door for monitoring to see if there is symptom progression, which is important to note. Because the reality is, sometimes when you're presenting with these symptoms, the doctors don't know what is going on right away. But if you are noticing those changes within yourself or within your partner, then it kind of sets the stage for a monitoring process to go on, because then maybe the real issue, the underlying issue, will eventually reveal itself, okay? Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about risk factors that can contribute to dementia. So, age is a huge risk factor for dementia, as the risk for dementia rises as a person ages. Now, this is not to be misunderstood as dementia being a normal part of aging, because it's not. Dementia is definitely not a normal part of aging, and it isn't just older adults who have a diagnosis of dementia. Okay, people even in their 20s can end up being diagnosed with some form of dementia. Okay, another risk factor is family history. So having a family history of dementia does put you at greater risk of developing a condition that leads to dementia. This is more common with the rarer forms of dementia like familial Alzheimer's disease or Huntington's disease. Also, sometimes people within the same family are at increased risk for developing dementia because of similar habits, which would be like lack of exercise, an unhealthy diet, heavy alcohol use, issues with like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arthrosclerosis, obesity, diabetes, smoking, okay, things like that. And then we have the additional risk factors such as like depression, sleep apnea, and vitamin and nutritional deficiencies. Okay? So, of course, after hearing about the risk factors, most people's next interest is in knowing, well, how can I reduce my risk? Well, let me first say that there is no absolute sure way to prevent dementia. Unfortunately, there is still so much that's not understood about dementia. So, when it comes to both prevention and treatment, there are definitely some serious gaps. But, as a general rule of thumb, if you want to decrease your risk of developing dementia, you have to do all the healthy things that people are always talking about. So, you want to be physically, mentally, and socially active. So, get up, move, challenge your brain with puzzles, reading, games, talk and chit chat with people. If you are a smoker, start cutting down on your smoking, and if you can, eliminate it altogether. Make sure you're maintaining a healthy diet, drinking enough water, getting enough vitamins, and making sure that your levels aren't too low or out of whack. If you have an issue with something like high blood pressure or high cholesterol, diabetes, switching to a healthier lifestyle will help. But while the problem still exists, you want to make sure that you are managing them with whatever medications that your doctor has recommended. Now, if you feel like the medications make you feel worse or that they aren't working, then don't just stop taking them. Talk to your doctor and let them know your concerns. If they aren't listening or if they're not helpful, then please just find a new doctor, okay? If you have issues with things like depression and anxiety, you want to make sure that you're getting the proper treatment for that. Definitely make sure you're practicing self-care. If you need to, find a counselor or a therapist. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that either, okay? And lastly, but very important, you want to make sure that you're getting adequate amounts of sleep. Sleep is a powerful, powerful healing mechanism for the body. And so depriving your body of adequate sleep can be detrimental in and of itself. So make sure you're getting at least 7 hours of sleep, okay? Implement a night routine if you need to wind down, If you feel like you have insomnia, talk to your doctor about it. But basically, guys, you want to take care of yourself as best as you can, but also enjoy life. The reality, guys, is that none of us are safe from any disease or disorder out there. Even the seemingly healthiest of people sometimes end up with some kind of issue. So I say all that to say, take care of yourself the best way you know how, enjoy life, and don't spend too much time worrying about whether or not you'll get dementia or something else. Because like I said, the reality is there is no way to be certain. Okay? So the last thing that I want to touch on before I let you guys go is stigma in dementia. Now, I made a whole podcast about stigma in dementia. It's episode 17, and it's actually one of our most popular episodes. So if you haven't checked out that episode yet, please go listen in. But for this episode, I just want to reiterate a couple of points that I made on that previous podcast. So people living with dementia are so misunderstood. And dementia in itself is very feared. And it is my belief that the more we seek to understand about dementia and the more we take time to actually talk with and spend time with people living with dementia, and I'm not talking about in the caring role, but on the ground level, person to person connection, okay? The more we'll be able to decrease the stigma and fear around dementia. Like most diseases, yes, dementia sucks and it does touch everyone involved. But the best we can do is strive to not only educate ourselves, but educate others as well. Be aware of our own attitudes and judgments and work on improving them so we don't pass on those potentially tainted beliefs to others. choose our words carefully and strive to use empowering language that focuses on the strengths and abilities of our partners versus the weaknesses and everything they can't do, right? We want to be as inclusive as possible and help our partners in maintaining control and dignity within their lives. And then we want to support others because this is not an easy journey, guys. So you want to make sure that you're getting the support that you need, but that you're also supporting others who need it when you're able to. But remember, guys, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself, okay? Because in order to take care of others, you first have to take care of yourself, okay? So that's all I have for you guys this episode. I hope that you all enjoyed this quick special episode talking about dementia, the risk factors, possible ways to prevent it, a little bit of, stigma and dementia. And as I always say, I really do hope that this podcast was informative and that you learned something of value. If you have any questions, comments, or future podcast requests, you can send us a voice message on whatthedementia.com or send us an email at podcast@whatthedementia.com. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of What the Dementia by Bambu Care. We look forward to catching you on the next episode. Take care, and until next time, stay strong, care on, and remember, you are not alone. Bambu Care is always here.